you wrote I Will Always Love You, and Elvis Presley was going to record it.
There was a guitar player, a staff band named Buddy Attaway, and he paid Buddy Attaway to be sick so he could play guitar.
What if I told you the glittering heart of Nashville once looked more like a carnival midway than the polished music machine we know today? In the 1950s and 60s, country's legends weren't just strumming heartbreak ballads. They were driving money-covered Cadillacs, wrestling horses onto stages, and setting pianos ablaze with hillbilly flair. These performers treated reality like wet clay, shaping outlandish public images that sent radio listeners leaning closer and whispering, "Did you hear what he did now?" Tonight, we're peeling back the rhinestones to reveal 19 of the goofiest visionaries ever to stomp across a sawdust-sprinkled dance floor. Some flashed outrageous fashion, some flirted with full-blown scandal, and others spun yarns so strange they sounded brewed from truck stop coffee and neon dreams. Yet every prank, stunt, or spectacular misstep helped forge the larger-than-life mythology that still echoes whenever a pedal steel sighs, reminding us country music has always loved a show pony as much as a storyteller. Before we strum the first chord, remember this. None of these tales are tall simply for shock value. They reveal a time when image, ego, and raw showmanship sold as many records as a 3-minute radio hit, and the race to stand out turned mild-mannered singers into folk heroes, and occasionally, folk villains. Our first stop shines like polished chrome under stage lights. To understand just how outrageous mid-century country culture could be, we need to meet the men who wore their fortunes on their sleeves, literally, and treated luxury like another instrument in the band. Their gleam set the pace for every sequin jacket that followed, proving bragging rights sound even sweeter when they jingle. So grab your sunglasses. The reflections bouncing off these showpieces might blind you before the guitars do. Webb Pierce strutted through Nashville like a country music magpie, attracted to anything that glittered. His most infamous creation was a pastel Cadillac, sheathed in nearly 1,000 silver dollars. Each coin lacquered into the bodywork, so the whole land yacht shimmered like a slot machine at high noon. Not content, Pierce dug a guitar-shaped swimming pool behind his house, adding diving board tuning pegs just because he could. Fans lined up for tours, neighbors complained about traffic. Pierce grinned and kept polishing. For him, chart success wasn't enough. The world had to see it parked in the driveway, soaking up sunshine and envy in equal measure. If Webb Pierce dazzled with metal, Porter Wagoner fought back with light itself. Dubbed the rhinestone trunk, his wardrobe of custom manual suits exploded with sequins that caught every camera flash like fireworks. Wagoner understood television better than most of his peers. The brighter his jacket, the longer viewers stayed glued. He even convinced a nervous newcomer named Dolly Parton to step into the sparkles, launching her superstardom while doubling his own wattage. In a town full of polished boots, Porter's outfit signaled that image could sing louder than any fiddle, and audiences happily tuned their sets to sparkle along. Everywhere he went, cameras followed. Money and rhinestones are flashy, but spectacle only matters if the crowd gasps in the moment. The next trio took that lesson to heart, turning live shows into traveling tall tales. They didn't just play songs, they acted them out, sometimes at great personal risk, always at great comic reward. Hold your applause, you'll need those hands free to catch your jaw when these entrances thunder in. From livestock to leopard prints, nothing was off limits tonight. Smooth-voiced Jim Ed Brown usually crooned about love's gentle glow, but one night in Louisiana he decided subtlety was overrated. Midway through a concert, Brown guided a full-sized saddle horse onto the stage, greeting the bewildered crowd as if entering the final round at a county fair. Spotlights bounced off the animal's glossy coat while Brown delivered his hit, Pop-a-Top, virtually unheard over the audience roar. The stunt accomplished exactly what Brown wanted, a story that galloped far beyond the concert hall, keeping his name and that horse, circling the country circuit long after the last chord faded. The legend still trots in fan chatter. At only 4'11", little Jimmy Dickens refused to be overshadowed. His solution was brilliantly simple. Wear a 10-gallon hat so enormous it looked like a UFO touching down on his microstage. Dickens leaned into the absurdity, scooting under microphone stands and quipping that he bought his boots in the children's aisle. The visual gag worked like rocket fuel. Television audiences memorized the silhouette, and booking agents discovered that novelty sells tickets. Every bow became an optical illusion, and every encore proved comedy and craftsmanship can share the same Stetson. Decades later, novelty acts still tip oversized hats in quiet homage to his bravado. Moon Mullican called himself the king of the hillbilly piano players, and he dressed for the coronation. Night after night, he pounded 88 keys while sweating through leopard print suits that screamed rock star long before the term existed. Mullican's boogie-woogie style blurred honky-tonk and jump blues, convincing teenagers their parents' music could actually burn. Many claimed the stage lights dimmed whenever he finished a set, as if the bulbs needed a breather. Moon's manic energy foreshadowed rockabilly mayhem, proving claws don't always hide behind cowboy cuffs. Elvis later cited him as an influence, a fact Mullican bragged about between piano rolls and whiskey-drenched laughs. Wild indeed. If props and costumes won eyeballs, spoken charisma won hearts. Next come the raconteurs who turned chatter into chart toppers, bending laughter and tears into golden vinyl. Their secret weapon wasn't a flashy Cadillac or stunt animal. It was the gap between punchline and pause, a beat where audiences leaned closer before howling, weeping, or both. Let's trade neon glare for microphone banter and meet the masters of country conversation. Prepare to grin, gasp, and maybe sniffle too. Jerry Clower never sang a note on stage, yet he sold out arenas simply by telling stories rugged enough to smoke hams. His yarns about the Ledbetter family and coon-hunting chaos painted rural Mississippi in colors brighter than any lyric sheet. Clower's delivery, half guffaw, half gospel shout, turned punchlines into catchphrases repeated over tractor engines and school cafeterias. Country headliners invited him to open their shows, knowing his tales would warm the crowd faster than a fiddle intro. Few comedians ever toured with music legends. Clower proved a well-timed haw could draw as many ticket stubs as a #1 single. He laughed all the way to platinum records. With Minnie Pearl, comedy came stitched to a straw hat whose $1.98 price tag dangled like a permanent wink. Her chirpy, howdy greeting cut through radio static, inviting listeners into a fictional hometown where every uncle had a tall tale and every pie cooled just right. Pearl blurred performer and persona so thoroughly that fans wrote letters to her character rather than to Sarah Ophelia Colley Cannon, the woman underneath. She transformed bargain bin branding into an empire, proving you can sell humility and a good punchline by keeping the tag visible and the smile even bigger. Her hat still hangs in Opry lore as comedic crown jewels. Buck Owens co-hosted television's corniest cornstalk, Hee Haw, turning hokey jokes into Saturday night ritual. Between knee-slapping sketches, Owens slipped chart-smashing Bakersfield riffs that made Telecaster twang a household sound. He understood contrast. Deliver a groaner, then unleash lightning guitar work, leaving audiences unsure whether to laugh or dance. The mix spawned endless syndication, and Owens laughed straight to the bank, living proof that musical credibility can survive even the cheesiest punchline if the groove is irresistible. Critics scoffed at the overalls and hay bales, but young players copied his sharp, cutting tone. The joke was on anyone who underestimated a man who mastered both comedy timing and fretboard fire. Red Sovine proved you could score a hit without singing a melody at all. His chart-topping Teddy Bear was a 5-minute spoken-word sob story about a paraplegic boy calling truckers on a CB radio. By the time Sovine's baritone whispered that the highway angels had arrived, half the audience was reaching for tissues. Critics mocked the syrup, but listeners sent the single gold, reminding Nashville that sincerity, however theatrical, still sells. In a genre built on storytelling, Sovine doubled down, delivering entire one-man radio dramas that turned steering wheels into tear-stained stages. Long-haul drivers still cite the track as proof that stories keep engines humming. Laughter is nice, but danger sells tickets too. The next four names treated the rulebook like disposable liner notes, blurring the fine line between outlaw ballad and actual outlaw life. Their scandals scorched headlines, their music scorched charts, and together they taught Nashville a costly lesson. Sometimes chaos is good marketing, until the bill arrives. Buckle up. These tales roar faster than a bootlegger's Ford. Keep your hands inside the ride, sparks fly in the next verse. Jerry Lee Lewis was a piano-pounding comet who refused to cool off. When news broke that he'd married his 13-year-old cousin while still legally wed to another woman, British tour promoters dropped him and American radio balked. Lewis did what only Lewis would, leaned harder on the keys, setting clubs ablaze, sometimes literally, and swigging from bottles on stage. His later pivot to country music salvaged his chart life, but the scandal never quit stalking him, a reminder that brilliance and bad judgment often share a heartbeat. Yet every modern showman who kicks over a piano bench owes a nod to the killer's fiery blueprint. Hank Williams Sr. wrote country's saddest hymns, but backstage he staged his own tragedies. Alcohol and painkillers made him unpredictable, and after a final drunken no-show, the Grand Ole Opry fired him in 1952, a humiliation broadcast across Music City. Hank's legend grew even as bookings vanished. Fans romanticized the fall, critics dissected it, and songs like Your Cheatin' Heart suddenly felt autobiographical in the worst way. His missteps forged myth, proving that a shattered crown still glitters under the right spotlight. When he died at 29 in the back of a Cadillac, the cautionary tale cemented alongside the masterpiece catalog. Johnny Paycheck took outlaw branding literally. In 1985, he answered a barroom slight by pulling a .22 caliber pistol and shooting a man in the head. Thankfully, the bullet only grazed. Paycheck claimed self-defense, but a jury disagreed, landing him nearly 2 years behind bars before a governor's pardon. His string of defiant hits suddenly sounded prophetic. The singer who demanded people take this job and shove it had shoved harder than anyone expected. Country radio couldn't look away, and neither could the tabloids, proving danger can double as free promotion. To this day, outlaw hopefuls name-check him to prove their credentials are genuine. David Allan Coe lived in a hearse, wore masks on stage, and released underground X-rated albums that made even bikers blush. He called it authenticity. Nashville called it a public relations nightmare. Coe's gravel pit voice and renegade marketing drew cult devotion, yet mainstream gates stayed half-closed, wary of the controversy he dragged like tin cans on a wedding car. Still, his wild mythology influenced every self-proclaimed outlaw who came after, proving obscenity and originality sometimes ride the same crooked highway. Fans swapped bootlegs like forbidden treasure, and Coe, ever the showman, smiled from beneath a Lone Ranger mask, perfectly happy to haunt the fringes. Chaos can scorch fast, but strangeness lingers even longer. Our next quartet walked the twilight zone between folklore and fact, dabbling in prophecies, alter egos, novelty monsters, and vocal trickery. If country music is a campfire, these were the sparks that drifted off, drawing curious eyes into darker woods. Just when you think you've heard every strange stage antic, these four prove oddity has endless verses. Keep listening. Johnny Horton scored hits about historical battles, but his spookiest legacy was personal. Friends said he often dreamed of dying in a car crash and warned them he wouldn't live past 36. In 1960, after playing the Skyline Club, his Cadillac was struck head-on by a drunk driver, fulfilling the eerie prediction almost to the letter. Fans turned the coincidence into campfire legend, and every spin of the Battle of New Orleans felt suddenly haunted by a singer who saw destiny barreling toward him and couldn't swerve. Even today, touring musicians swap his story like a travel night ghost tale. Ferlin Husky led a double life long before superheroes made it trendy. Between crooning hits like Gone, he morphed into Simon Crumb, a nerdy, high-yelping parody who hijacked his own concerts with comedic roasts. Crowds loved the bait-and-switch, industry execs scratched their heads at the logistics. Husky thrived on the duality, proving you can parody the genre and still dominate its charts. effectively high-fiving yourself on stage. The act foreshadowed modern alter ego marketing, from Garth Brooks' Chris Gaines experiment to countless TikTok personas, but none matched Husky's fearless commitment to mocking and celebrating country tropes in the same breath. Simon never missed a punchline. Sheb Wooley jumped genres and galaxies with The Purple People Eater, a novelty smash about a one-eyed, one-horned alien that devoured charts in 1958. Then he slipped behind the scenes to record the famous Wilhelm scream, a stock sound effect now echoing through hundreds of action films. Wooley turned silliness into immortality, proving 3 chords and a clever grin could infiltrate both jukeboxes and Hollywood shootouts. His legacy squeals every time a movie hero plummets off a cliff, a cosmic royalty check in shriek form. Somehow, the country crooner became cinema's most repeated inside joke, outlasting even his vinyl sales. Del Reeves stole the show by becoming everyone else. Mid-song, he'd launch into flawless impressions of peers, from Johnny Cash to Little Jimmy Dickens, sprinkling his signature doodle-oo-doo-doo squeal for extra flair. Audiences never knew which voice would appear next, and Reeves milked the suspense across 20 chart years. Impression comedy kept him touring after radio cooled, and his mimic masterclass paved the path for variety-driven acts that dominate TikTok's duet feeds today. Even in later decades, he re-emerged as a label executive, signing fresh talent while reminding rookies that versatility, when seasoned with humor, can stretch a career longer than any single hit. Before we hang our hats, 2 elder statesmen ride in to prove that classic cowboy iconography can still pack surprise when played with a wink. They looked older than their yearbook photos and sounded older than the hills, yet their pickin' could outrun young hotshots. Saddle up for a final burst of banjo snap and silver screen grit. These are the men who kept frontier folklore alive even as amplifiers grew louder and rhinestones brighter. Listen. Tex Ritter blurred the line between real ranches and Hollywood backlots, starring in dozens of B-Western films while releasing cowboy ballads that mirrored the plots. Audiences believed every whistle because Ritter actually rode and roped on set, wielding authenticity like a marketing lasso. His booming baritone carried "Do Not Forsake Me" from movie screens to living rooms, and suddenly the silver screen cowboy became a living, touring attraction. Ritter's strategy was simple. Give moviegoers a hero they could shake hands with after the credits, and they'd buy every record on the table. The model predicted today's multimedia stars decades before marketing gurus coined synergy. Grandpa Jones earned his nickname at 22, courtesy of a vaudeville routine where he complained like an old farmer. Long before aging became a meme, Jones leaned into the gag, donning wire-rimmed glasses, overalls, and a straw hat that never aged a day. Behind the dusty disguise, his banjo shredded at warp speed, rattling audiences who expected sleepy front porch strums. Jones proved stagecraft isn't about hiding weaknesses, but exaggerating quirks until they shine, and millions tuned in to Hee Haw each week to watch the spry Grandpa outpick session pros half his age. His grinning growl still echoes through Appalachian jam circles. From silver dollar dashboards to CB radio tearjerkers, these 19 mavericks remind us that country music's golden age glittered far beyond the grooves of its records. Their antics weren't random. Each outrageous choice amplified a personal brand in an era before social media or viral hashtags could do the heavy lifting. They understood instinctively what modern marketers lecture about. Give fans a story they can retell, and your name will travel further than any tour bus. Some gambits cost careers, others bought immortality, but every one of them proves authenticity in country music has always been less about behaving and more about believing. Believing that a Cadillac can be a canvas, a joke can sell 1 million singles, and a banjo played by a grandpa can sound younger than tomorrow. So next time a new artist forces a headline, remember, the bar for weird was set high, and it's still jingling somewhere on Lower Broadway, louder than a runaway freight.